What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Mind Trick Media. Happy 4th of July. Today on the podcast, I am going to be looking at some Star Wars fan theories. So these range from a bunch of different things. Found an article about it. I'm going to go over some of them today. So, start out. This first one's a doozy. Darth Jar Jar was George Lucas's original plan before fan backlash changed the story. So, I think the Darth Jar Jar thing has gone, over the last couple of years, has obviously, skyrocketed in, fan theory. I'd like to know what this person means by original plan. I don't know if they mean, 7, 8, 9, or what. I don't necessarily, I don't know where they get this from. I don't think George Lucas has ever even mentioned a Darth Jar Jar. Maybe I'm mistaken, but I know that's become a thing just because of, some of the Clone Wars clips and all this other stuff where he's, jumping around, getting, dodging bullets and stuff like that, and just, I don't know, if you're tapped into the Darth Jar Jar and, how Lego made the, little short series, the What If Star Wars type of thing. I don't know how much weight this one holds. It would have been interesting, I guess, but I think a lot of people would have been upset. But, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's the smartest thing, but I'd love for someone to ask George Lucas about this. Anyway. Going on to, an absolute, no doubter of a fan theory, Mace Windu survived his duel with Palpatine. I mean, this might be better than Darth Jar Jar. That was something always as a kid, I think before, I even watch Star Wars media, other than, the stuff, any creators or anything. I always thought it was, a little weird how Mace Windu dies, obviously, he gets his arm cut off and he gets thrown out a window. But then, I remember being a kid and being he could have survived that. He has the Force. It's not like he killed him on the spot and then they threw him out the window. I don't know. Obviously, he got shocked by Force lightning, but I've always found it weird because of, there's the scenes in the second movie with Obi-Wan flying through the city on the little droid, and Anakin jumping off the side of the speeders and stuff like that, and I don't know, I feel like a Jedi definitely could have found a way to survive something like that, especially Mace Windu. It's I don't know, this fan theory is one of those ones that I feel like fans have been waiting for at least acknowledgement, for them to come out and make a statement, oh yeah, no, he definitely died, or oh no, he survived, we're making this project, and we just haven't gotten it. Yeah, I don't know, I don't even know if I would like this. I think his death symbolizes the full turn of Anakin, where he's I already killed him, there's no going back. I'm irredeemable after this. And, yeah, I don't know if making him survive, other than it being cool, would help Star Wars in any way. Next one of the ones that me and Jordan, kind of, take to heart a little bit, Qui-Gon Jinn would have prevented Anakin from becoming Darth Vader. Obviously there's some novelization about it, some comics, talking about Qui-Gon and why he needed to die for Palpatine and Plagueis. Palpatine and Plagueis thought that Qui-Gon was, the most dangerous Jedi in the Order, next to, Dooku. Obviously, they understood the threat of Yoda and, what Yoda was and how powerful he was. Probably more powerful than both of them. Definitely in combat and, non-banned force abilities. He's just about unstoppable. But Qui-Gon's thinking of the Force, like how the Force works, really set him apart and made him a target. They in a way knew that they had tricked Yoda and tricked Mace Windu and made them, like, they were going on the path that the Sith set them on, where they're blinded by the Republic, they're blinded by what the Jedi Order's become, they've been blinded by being secure in their temple, and Qui-Gon kind of threw a wrench in that, where he didn't care about necessarily the Order as like a way to live. He more so followed the Force and what he thought it meant and what he thinks it was telling him to do. So someone like that is dangerous to someone like Palpatine, because Palpatine is constantly manipulating the Force around him and trying to manipulate events to make people like think a certain way, where Qui-Gon just let the Force kind of like think for him, do the things that he felt were right instead of doing the things he thought were right. And that was a massive problem, because he saw what was in Anakin that no one else could see. And then when he finally somewhat convinced them, in a way, or at least convinced Obi-Wan, they kill him. And it's like, him surviving and or not even being a part of that duel would have absolutely changed Anakin's direction. Like, I think we've talked about in this podcast before, where I kind of think Qui-Gon, if he would have survived, I think the Jedi Order would have denied Anakin being trained, and I think Qui-Gon would have left the Order. I think he thought that the Chosen One would have been more important to him and what the Force wanted than being a part of the Order that he kind of, not in a way, he didn't distance himself, because he thought, like, in the overall sense what they were doing was correct, but he definitely thought that they were going down past, and that's why you see, like, Dooku is a different story, because he had even more stuff going on. He was letting feelings mix with it too, but, like, Dooku saw that it's like, he's like, these Jedi are sitting in their temple not actually fixing problems. They're becoming this, like, police of the galaxy instead of, like, people who brought peace and, like, use the Force to solve actual issues. Like, I don't know if it's a book, but Dooku says something along the lines of, like, the Jedi Order can help politicians and be bodyguards, but they can't stop slavery on Tatooine. And it's like, it's like a real point, and, like, something I like about Star Wars, where they carry on in different ways issues that our world deals with, and how we don't necessarily fix the things that are wrong, even though, like, we watch Star Wars and it's like, oh man, slavery is wrong, but then, like, slavery is still going on in the world today, and it's something that, like, probably could be stopped, but we're, like, as the world, we're just choosing not to. It's too much going into that, but yeah, Qui-Gon, I believe, would have prevented Darth Vader. Next one, Palpatine manipulated the Force to create Anakin Skywalker. I think Palpatine and Plagueis. Plagueis was the mastermind behind the Metachlorians and what he was doing. If you're new to this podcast, I guess, and this is the first time you're seeing me talk, something with Plagueis was Palpatine's master. Plagueis was like a mad scientist. There's an entire book about him and Palpatine. And in this book, Plagueis they go this route of doing these experiments where they were trying to create Force-sensitive things and seeing how they could manipulate their own metachlorians to live longer, to create minions of the dark side and stuff like that. And he was doing these experiments where he was like pushing metachlorians into like animals, or creating animals from nothing, or using metachlorians to make an animal, create it, stuff like that. And he killed a ton of animals and species. But at a certain point, they feel this shift in the galaxy, and Qui-Gon is coming back to Coruscant with this like chosen one, and the way that they were so interconnected with the Jedi, they knew what was happening because of Palpatine being on the Senate and end up becoming Chancellor and stuff like that, that there's actually, like, in the events of the first movie, well, The Phantom Menace, Plagueis is alive during that movie, which is something that I think a lot of people don't know about. He sees Anakin with his own eyes. And upon seeing him, like, Plagueis gets this, like, flash of what is to come of him. And he sees, like, this dark figure of Darth Vader. And it's super interesting to think about, because in their head, like, there's, like, the theory that they, while trying to manipulate metachlorians, kind of made the Force mad in a way. And to counteract them messing with the Force and metachlorians, it, like, created Anakin. That's the idea of, like, the immaculate birth. And obviously this is how crazy Star Wars is. When Star Wars first came out, this probably was not a thought at all. Like, the immaculate birth is probably has to do with, like, a Jesus complex and, like, a chosen one, and that's how Anakin becomes in the first movie, with Shmi talking to Qui-Gon and her saying, like, there was no father, he just, I became pregnant, I gave birth, and here he is. And I think Star Wars has, over the years, definitely created a media background where everything has a story behind it, and they've made this Plagueis story, and it kind of goes into that, where him and Palpatine manipulated it, and, like, in a way the Force created Anakin to stop them from doing what they were doing. It's kind of complicated. The stories get mixed. There's conflicting stories. Some people believe certain things and others don't. That's what's weird but also cool about the Star Wars fan base. We kind of all have our own little legends in our head of what is canon, what is not canon, what we think happened and what others think happened, and then, like, current day Star Wars, they're changing that every day. So yeah, but obviously that's been a big fan theory. Following up with that, the next one says, someone wrote that the Force itself created Anakin to restore balance. Yeah, going back into it, like, he is like this ancient prophecy that came to fruition just in the era that we're watching it, where Anakin is this balance restorer. And there's a scene in the third movie in Revenge of the Sith that I, like, really like, and it's a scene where Yoda, Mace Windu, and Obi-Wan are all on a ship, and they're talking, and, like, Obi-Wan says something along the lines of, like, is he not the chosen one? Is he not supposed to, like, bring balance to the Force? And Mace Windu responds, like, so the prophecy says. And Yoda answers with, maybe the prophecy was, like, misread. And I love that line, because I don't think a single part of canon Star Wars ever says the full prophecy. I know there's a couple books where you get, like, what the extended length of the prophecy, but, like, the idea that it's like, oh, he brings balance to the Force, but, like, what does that mean? To the Sith, it kind of means that hey, there's this person who is going to make this a 1-for-1, where there's 1 Sith for 1 Jedi, 1 Sith for 1 Jedi, 5 Sith for 5 Jedi, and that's what balance means. But the Sith, the Sith are not supposed to exist. The Force balance is that there is just good. There is just life. Like, there's good and bad in life, but people who go above and beyond to manipulate it are not supposed to be there. So the idea that, like, the galaxy was in a balance after Order 66 is still not correct. Because there aren't supposed to be Sith. So, in a way, like, Anakin doesn't really fulfill that prophecy until after the 6th movie. And I know people who saw Star Wars before the prequels came out, a lot of people believe that the Chosen One is Luke, and that he has that Chosen One arc in the original trilogy. But he really isn't the one who brings the balance. Like, Darth Vader's still the one who kills the Emperor. Like, and he chooses to let himself go in A, the fulfillment of his prophecy, and B, the need to not be there. If that makes sense. Like, and obviously, this is another one of those things that, like, people still think Luke is the Chosen One. People think Anakin, Darth Vader. People think it's the Skywalker family that are, like, the chosen people. Like, it's all over the place. People have the right to believe whichever one they want. From my understanding and what George Lucas thought is that Anakin was the Chosen One all the way through. Obviously, he's the creator. He can do whatever the fuck he wants. I know some people disagree with that. I don't agree with those people. But, yeah. So, I do think Anakin, in some way, was built to restore balance. And I think the idea of it being Plagueis and Palpatine's fault is, like, a good way to do it. I think that's a great way to have that put in. These are running off of each other. I'm assuming these were... I'm going off a website, and I'm assuming they, like, kind of connected them. Because the next fan theory is the balance in the Force means equal light and dark, and not eliminating the Sith. See, I don't agree with this fan theory. Balance in the Force means equal light and dark. See, now, I don't think this is what this means. I think I think part of this is true. I think in the idea of the Force and the way that things live, that there are light and dark. Like, there are dark side creatures that were just created. Like, they don't know that they're dark. They don't know that they hold the essence of the dark side. But there needs to be good and bad for the flow of life. And the Sith still interject themselves because they were not born evil or born to be bad. They choose to do it. It's not part of the balance of life. And so, no, I don't agree with the equalness of the Sith and the Jedi. This one is Darth Plagueis is still alive, hiding behind the scenes. This just isn't true. There's the canonized version of Episode 3 where Palpatine literally says, like, he was killed by his apprentice. I don't know where that fan theory would even have come from. That's a weird thing to me. The rule of two was designed to eventually create the perfect Sith apprentice. Yes, in theory. So the rule of two is interesting in the sense of, Darth Bane, I don't know why I blanked. Darth Bane realized that too many Sith become a problem. And there's like a separate fan theory that like there's only so much Sith energy and like it needs to be funneled through like the fewest amount of people possible to cause like the greatest level of Sith. And like I somewhat think that, but then I also somewhat think that like in his words too, that too many Sith were coming into power and then the people under them crave that power, so then they fight and kill that person, and then the next person becomes that person. And it's something that like I think Bane learned from the holocrons of Revan, Nihilus, and Malgus, and looking into them. And he kind of realized that like the less Sith there are, the less there are to kill each other and cause mayhem and destroy themselves. And so when he makes the rule of two, he divulges into any Sith knowledge he can find, and then he teaches that knowledge to his apprentice, and then his apprentice's goal is to overtake what he knows as a dark side user, kill him, have all of his knowledge, seek her own knowledge, build up her knowledge, gain an apprentice, share that knowledge till it flips, and then grow that knowledge and share that knowledge until it flips. And by the time you get to Plagueis and Palpatine, Plagueis wants to stop the rule of two because Plagueis wants to live forever. That's also something that Darth Bane wanted to learn to do, and his apprentice ended up stopping it in a way. Plagueis is seeking immortality and wants Palpatine to do that with him. And then when Palpatine seizes the moment to keep the rule of two going, Palpatine kills him because he doesn't want to share that overall power and be the smaller guy. So then we see this next struggle with Palpatine of where Palpatine becomes the actual Sith Lord, and he funnels a bunch of apprentices because he doesn't want to give it up either. He wants to seek immortality, which falls into what happens in 7, 8, and 9. And they just, honestly, 7, 8, 9, they don't have a bad idea of what Palpatine was trying to do. They just don't execute it, and they don't explain it, so then people are confused. Someone who kind of knows what's going on is confused. So, but I fully agree, like, the rule of two is supposed to keep creating perfect Sith and have all this knowledge, and that was his intent. That was the intention. Darth Vader secretly planned to overthrow Palpatine much earlier than Return of the Jedi. 100%. He tries to kill him at the end of Revenge of the Sith that we don't get to see, but is in the canonization of the book. Once he finds out that Padme is dead, he force chokes and pushes Palpatine against the wall, and Palpatine like gets out of it and immediately hits him with Force lightning and kind of gives him a warning of like, don't ever try that again with me or I will kill you. Like, he threatens Vader, like, and from there on, like, Vader like accepts that he isn't who he was, and he probably isn't as strong as Palpatine, but that doesn't stop him from always thinking about trying to kill him. Like, he doesn't like Palpatine. He obviously blames him for what happened as much as he funnels the idea of, like, I blame the Jedi. He blames Palpatine. He just, to push himself into the rage and go deeper, he blames the Jedi and Obi-Wan to not feel bad for what he's done. and his regret in what he's done. But yeah, Vader tries to kill and overthrow Palpatine all the time. Let's do one more good one. Before I get to the last one, too, I know me and Jordan probably have theories or say things that are definitely not canon that I guess you could call theories. I'd love to hear some of your guys' theories down in the comments. And or message the Instagram or however you want to reach out. Would love to read some of them. Maybe even make a video on some of them. But we're going to end on this one. Okay. So this one says, Luke was stronger than Anakin ever became. I wonder if this theory is Legends or not. I'm going to go with it being Legends, and it's not even like a theory. Luke becomes... So, okay. So... when they talk about power scaling in Star Wars, it's a little thrown off. Some people don't like the midichlorians, some people do. I'm indifferent. I think some of the midichlorian counts are way off from what they should be. But if we go by what they say, like Anakin's midichlorian count was insanely higher than everyone else's at like 27,000. For reference, Palpatine and Yoda are similar, and they're around the 18 to 21,000, if I'm not mistaken. Luke and Leia's midichlorian count is like 23,000. Like, it's an insane number. After Anakin loses his arm in Attack of the Clones, his midichlorian count dips. Because midichlorians are literally what flow through your body, so when you start losing limbs, you start to lose midichlorian count, in a way. So, when Anakin loses to Obi-Wan on Mustafar, probably the strongest we've ever seen Anakin, every single time, you just cut the amount of midichlorians going through his body. So, by the time we see him as Darth Vader, even as powerful as he is, he's half the person he was. And with being that, like, he probably dipped just below Yoda and Palpatine. He probably is in that, like, high, like, 10,000, whatever it may be. But still with Luke only ever loses his hand, and he just lives the rest of his life like that. So even if you bump him down a little, he's still at 20+ thousand midichlorians. He becomes the strongest and most in-depth person in the Force ever. Like, I would borderline say Luke is my favorite Legends character. Because he goes on to have these feats that are beyond the knowledge of normal Star Wars. He can manipulate black holes. He can, and like, one thing I don't like, I think me and Jordan talked about this on the last podcast, where we were talking about Cal Kestis and some of the abilities he has that are like insane for him to have, but the ability to like stop objects in midair and or stop time in a way. There's this very famous story of Luke where Luke doesn't want to be, not necessarily doesn't want to be seen, but doesn't want to be bothered by going through this area that he needs to get through. So what he does is he just stops time, walks through the crowd of people to where he's not noticed, and then just starts time again after he walked through all of it. Like, he can manipulate time. He has force projection, which we see in the 8th movie, which I don't like how they did it. I have issues with it. They don't explain it well. I'm not here to talk about that. he has force projection, force healing. Like, his abilities are he learns basically every ability that any Jedi has ever had, and then walks this middle ground of accepting that the dark side is a thing, and can use dark side abilities too, where he doesn't let the dark side corrupt him, so he can use the ability or tap into that ability and then just stop and know that it's wrong, but he could use it to his advantage in a fight. And it's something similar to, like, he has something, the idea of, like, Mace Windu with Vaapad, where, if you don't know what Vaapad is, I'll explain that too. So Mace Windu does this thing when fighting that he, like, lets go of the good force and kind of uses the force around him, and he uses his, like, opponent's, like, thoughts and feelings to tap into the dark side and the light side and be able to just use the force in any way to fight. And that's why he's such a dangerous duelist. And Luke becomes that, where, and not just in fighting, but in everything, he can use the force in any way he chooses that it lets him. Any way that it lets him choose. That might be a better way to put it. He just becomes this all-powerful being that lets the force choose. Not that he lets the force do what it wants, in a way. I don't even know how to explain it. There's so much to it. Like, he becomes an all-powerful being in the history of Star Wars. Like, there's like, and without corruption, which is something that's, like, that blows my mind in a way. Like, I wish we could get that Legends Luke that I feel like a lot of Star Wars fans talk about and have read about, where he almost just is an unbroken, like, he can't be defeated character. And it's like, he has that, like, Superman trope that, like, he's a Superman trope, but there's no kryptonite. Like, he's just an all-powerful being who can, like, I'm going to go on forever talking about this, so I'm going to have to stop, but, like, Luke 100% becomes stronger than Anakin and becomes the strongest to ever be. And we don't really have an ending for Luke other than, I guess, the canon version, which is fucking terrible, but yeah, like, Luke 1000% becomes stronger than Anakin. And I think that's why me and Jordan get so upset with what they did in 7, 8, 9, because Luke is not supposed to be what they showed. He's not that. He never would be that. It doesn't make sense. And no matter how many times I've heard someone try to explain it, it doesn't make sense. I don't know if those people aren't tapped into the Legends or what Luke becomes or what the 6th movie, like, Luke's, like, words and thoughts mean, but he directly contradicts it in the next time we see him, and I really don't like that. But I love going over fan theories. This is my favorite part of Star Wars. Like, I love the TV shows, I love the movies, I love the big screen. I love the Legends lore of Star Wars. I think it's what separates the 5%ers in Star Wars, the deep lore people, and I love talking about this stuff. I love learning new stuff. So, like I said, add comments, send DMs. Love to hear you guys' fan theories, or if you want us to cover certain Legends things, or want us to deep dive into Luke and Legends or any character, like, we'd love to do so. I know it's been kind of crazy, whether we're online, in person with just me, whatever. It's been kind of crazy. Really hoping we can get back onto a better schedule. There's just a lot going on. I want to thank you guys definitely for still watching and being here and having to deal with all of our issues. But this has been My Chick Media this week. Love you guys. See you next time.